Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to episode 2 of the summer series. This is a series of podcasts that we are playing for you as we take a bit of a break over summer to recharge our batteries. I hope you guys are doing the same as well. So tonight's episode, it's currently the 28th of December as you're watching this. We are featuring Debbie Ngarewa Packer. We kind of did a mini episode with her. It was about 25 minute conversation that we put up on a Friday night several weeks ago. So we're going to replay that for you. We're also going to revisit a conversation we had with Paula Penfold. Now, Paula Penfold made that documentary Fire and Fury about the Wellington anti-vaccine, anti-mandate protest. One of the things she did during the conversation we had with her was she made the claim that one of the most dangerous places she's been as a journalist was that protest. So we're going to talk a bit about that. And also Today FM was a radio station that started up maybe 18 months ago, only lasted a year before the bosses at MediaWorks said enough is enough. It was actually, I think, a change of management came through, and then that was the end of Today FM. I know the people from Today FM, and I worked with a lot of them in previous iterations of radio stations, and I was doing some work for Today FM on a weekly basis as well. But once it all fell over, I shared my thoughts as to why I think it failed. What led to Today FM not getting the traction that they kind of needed to be able to compete with News Talk ZB and stick around. So that's another clip that's coming up for tonight. Stay safe wherever you are. Hug a loved one. Hope you're well and enjoying the summer series. This is episode 2 of Big Hearing News' summer series.
Well, we've been to Afghanistan twice, and we get security training as journalists, hostile environment training when we go to places like that. So Afghanistan twice, the Philippines 4 times, which is one of the world's most dangerous countries to be a journalist. One of our most terrible decision-making processes was in Mexico, when we thought that we would be fine to do a particular job and we were really wrong. But I refer to that hostile environment training because when we have that hostile environment training, it's because we need to be prepared and reminded about situational awareness and things like always having an exit route when you're in a particular situation and having a plan. We used that to a degree in places like Afghanistan, but we used it full on in Wellington. And that makes me really sad, not just as a journalist, but as a citizen, that our hostile environment training is most useful in our own country. What the hell? What's gone wrong?
Yeah, I think I spotted a little bit of that just when you were literally getting hounded out, but I just noticed the body language.
Yeah, how you were walking.
You were, shoulders rolled, small. I said that straight there is someone that knows it's going very south, and it's just I can't antagonize this person. I've got to get out.
I didn't realize it was that obvious, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly how we felt. And Louisa Cleve, our Stuff Circuit producer, and I were talking about it the other day. And, I was kind of too scared to look back at this, what was going on behind us, but I also really wanted to know what was going on behind us. But when she looks at that footage, she sees herself looking behind us because she needed to know, because it was incredibly threatening. And that wasn't even the worst time. That was just a time that was captured on camera. Some of the worst moments weren't captured on camera. And I'm not looking for sympathy as a journalist because, one of my colleagues reminded me that no one really actually cares about, no one cares about journalists particularly. But my point in raising this, and I'm grateful to discuss this, and our point in putting it in the documentary is that it's not about us as kind of individuals, or as journalists even, but it's about our collective role in our democracy. And I'm always hesitant to talk about that because it sounds sort of so self-important. But I do really believe that it's it's under threat. One of the pillars of our democracy is under threat when people won't let us report.
Yeah.
It's a protest. We're journalists. I've reported on, I don't know how many protests in 30 years as a journalist. I've never been treated like that in this country or anywhere else. So what's gone wrong? I mean, we know what's gone wrong, but what do we do about it?
Kia ora koutou whānau, welcome back. Hope you're enjoying the summer series here on Bigger Hearing News. Want to let you know as well, we do have a little bit of stuff still going on the merch shop. What a bit of a special through the summer period. There's actually one 5XL Big Hearing News hoodie left over that normally retails for $90. That may or may not still be there, seeing this is a pre-recorded conversation. But if you're 5XL and you're in the market for a BHN hoodie, that may still be there if you want to go check it out. Also, we've got a bunch of other things for sale. There's Beardy Boy product, there's caps, there's t-shirts. They're all pretty cool. And whilst we're doing this through the summer series, we're actually offering a summer sale. So everything on the website right now, including that BHN hoodie, if it's still there, is 25% off. All you need to do at checkout is use the promo code SUMMER and you can get 25% off anything in store. They will be getting sent out during the summer period. We are around. I am around in Dunedin doing things like pulling up carpet. But if you're interested in supporting what we do and you'd like to pick up some merch, it's bhnshop.nz. And as for now, let's continue with the summer series. Welcome to the show, co-leader of the Māori Party, Debbie Ngarewa Packer. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Pat.
I want to ask you a really dumb question first of all, because I think I missed the press release. Do you guys still use the Māori Party, or is it Te Pāti Māori now and that's it? Like, because when it was Te Pāti Māori, I looked for a press release and I was like, what's going on? Because it was still MāoriParty.com, I think, on the website. What's happening with the branding, I guess, is the most important question of the day.
Oh, good question. Te Pāti Māori, and I guess that's about us being clear on our kupu and progressing it. So I think we've probably come from a transition period where pre-2020 we were known as Māori Party only, and we've progressed, and I guess it's all part and parcel of us going into the next generation, really, and that significance of being able to call ourselves Te Pāti Māori,
So that's the brand. Yeah. That's the branding. Full stop. Now that'll be the website. That'll be all media outlets. It'll be Te Pāti Māori. It won't be Māori Party.
I'm looking at you with our team of 2 MPs and probably 3 or 4 staff. Definitely. And as you're talking about the website, I'm like, okay, I must write that down and tell somebody that.
No problem.
Party.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I like it. Let me just ask you before we kind of get into the main question I wanted to talk to you about today, which was some of Christopher Luxon's comments earlier in the week. Three Waters was announced yesterday. Well, sorry, not Three Waters, Affordable Water, whatever the new name is, by any other name. What's Te Pāti Māori think about the new iteration of the 10 regions and the slightly new way of doing it? Are you guys on board, or are you still see gaps and holes? Are you worried about it?
Oh, yeah, we still see gaps and holes. We didn't support the Three Waters, I'm sure that you know, and that was based on the fact that the real bigger issue here is the rights and interests of water, the mana of wai, the fact that we shouldn't be polluting and looking after, and should be looking after our taonga. So we sort of have that high principle stand of that first and foremost being determined. And the mana o te wai and rights interests actually still sit with the tribunal. So we will continue to have that principled stand. Whether they've broken it down into 10 little groups or 15 or 12, or the reality is that it's still a major issue for us as a nation, the pollution, the bottling, the lack of respect for our water. So infrastructure is one part of it, but the bigger picture for us is the protection of our taonga, the protection of wai.
So Te Pāti Māori's focus is really more on the water, not to negate the infrastructure, whereas others maybe focus on the infrastructure as the water being the byproduct. Yeah,
that's right. And I think if you continue to, and I heard Nick Smith sort of was upset about stormwater being involved and this being involved, the reality is if we keep talking about the bricks and mortar and we don't actually talk about the preservation, the fact we shouldn't be bottling water, the fact that our aquifers are in danger, the fact that we have too much nitrogen and stuff coming in, it doesn't matter what we invest in infrastructure, there'll be nothing to put in it. that's drinkable, that's quality. So yeah, again, and I think people sort of, maybe it's seen as being idealistic, but we've got to be. Who would have thought we'd be brought to our knees from a pandemic? Who would have thought, climate change and cyclones would be stopping, harming our whānau, harming our businesses? So, yeah, that's our principled stand. So we are unlikely to have changed it just because I've rejigged. It does look like a rejig.
Yeah, it does. Some changes, but not a lot. But then again, I think the previous iteration, there was certain groups around in the opposition and also, let's say, swelling the ground, who also were muddying what the previous iteration was. So I don't think the public really got a clear understanding of what the previous was. And this is similar too, but slightly changed.
It was good to hear the Prime Minister acknowledge that, and we'd been saying this for a while, that they'd left the Ngāi Mahuta out in the cold and quite often the dark as they were pushing this agenda along. I think the comms of it was shocking. But
100%.
Again, I think that's because there was a purposeful agenda to try and centralise and look after and cut costs and infrastructure and things like that. But the reality is, and I live in Taranaki, and we've forever seen warnings put up on our beaches, on our lakes. We can't swim, it's unswimmable, it's polluted, it's got this, it's got that. And I think the bigger issue for us is a little bit like the cyclone. And we know that people live in dangerous environments that perhaps shouldn't have been habitable. And when are we going to deal with some of those bigger issues? Yeah. So, I think what's disappointing is that we sort of keep clambering around down here, literally in the gutters. And the issue for us as a nation hasn't been addressed, is when are we going to address the state of our water and the state of our drinking water, the quality of our mokopuna, of all of our children being able to be guaranteed that they can live in a good natural environment going forward. So,
one other kind of sub question, not about the main topic. John Tamihere making noises, making comments during the week about potentially Māori Party running in every seat. Is that still something that's on the table? Is it a decision you guys have made? Where is that at the moment?
I think in every Māori seat, that's always going to be a priority for us. So my understanding is that we have 6 of the 7 candidates. There's one that is going through a process, or an electorate that's going through a process at the moment. So I think that's probably all on track. And then there'll also be, and he announced this as well, there'll also be some strategic decisions made for various general seats. And we've had a lot of interest. And I think the polls reflect, which is really humbling, thankfully, that our tangata tiriti get it as well. And so they want to be part of this change and just resorting the balance of us as a nation. So I think that's been met with some real enthusiasm as well. So I mean, I guess everyone's sort of talking about the what's and when's and who's, but we're sort of just going through that really calmly and considered, so that we are we're not a rich party, so that all the candidates and those electorates are able to come up with some good support and figure out how they're all going to resource themselves.
Well, that is a consideration, isn't it? If it was in every general electorate, how do you then finance that? How does that then, are you spreading yourselves too thin, so to speak? So
I mean, if you look at the size of the Māori electorates, it's just huge. I think mine is like 9.5 hours long, 8.5 hours wide. Wow. But, that's those, and everyone matters. If you don't go to Patia and then you do go to Tokoroa, then it's, it's like not tuning up to all your whānau gigs. So everyone matters. So I think and that's why we're often quite slower and deliberate, because we know the toll physically, mentally, and financially to do that. And we want to make sure that there's some really good consideration to all those things you've got to handle. But, it can't be as hard as the baptism by fire we had for our 2020 campaign when we weren't in. I can't believe I think I got 11,500 votes, and I thought, man, that's so awesome, because we weren't even in. So, the confidence and the movement has grown in force. So, that's the other part, is about managing all the face-to-face gigs as people are deciding who's going to stand and who's not. So.
Let's have a look at what happened this week as well. So I'm reading off a Stuff article right now. During a Q&A session at a dairy farm on Tuesday, Christopher Luxon was asked, are you going to be able to win the electorate by working with the Māori Party, quote unquote? His reply, the short answer is no. He then went on to say the party that Key did a deal with back in 2008 was a party that believed in what we call localism and devolution. This is a party that now believes in two separate systems, and that is something we cannot support. Is the National Party eliminated you, ruled you out as a coalition partner post the election?
Oh, look, I don't know what Chris has done, because almost within an hour, and so through all of this, I did this really cheeky TikTok, which if anyone knows me, that's sort of where my alter ego comes out. But, you know, and I guess I was trading and we sort of had this flick. Oh, Nationals ruled you out. Do you have a comment? And I was still on the treadmill when another one came about, maybe not an hour later, because I don't last that long on the treadmill, but another one popped up and sort of said, oh, no, don't worry. One of the National spokespeople have said they haven't ruled you out. And I'm like thinking, oh, what a flip-flop. The reality is that I guess this is where we see, sadly, that side of politics when politicians will say what they want to say to who their audience is. We just cannot be distracted or rely on that type of cordial, and whether they want to or not. It's not up to him. It's up to us. The last time I looked, we get to decide who we would and wouldn't.
Unless they don't invite you. I mean, they have the element of saying, would you like to make a government with us or not? They could choose that. I mean, I don't like when media groups project seats. I never really pay attention to that, because what a poll is today. That's not what it's going to be in the future. But when they do project and they talk about balance of power and that kind of stuff, a particular party might be able to decide either way. I'm not saying it's going to be you guys, but a party could do that.
But I honestly, and I'm with you. I mean, I'm not into the poll culture on a good day. And I'm an ex-marketer, sales and marketing. And I always just used to think, and our whole socials and the way we've run our comms has been completely against every blueprint that's been written. And everyone keeps telling us, you're wrong, and we just keep doing it our own way. I think our way that we feel the ground is, can we fill a bus? Do people turn up? Are we getting responses to this? And I think those are what we'll continue to poll by. It's organic. It's probably not very scientific, but actually it's how we've done it to date. And that's how we want to maintain that authenticity. I think going back, so you did right. They get to choose. And to be honest, I'm losing track of what it is that they say and don't say. And it's election year. And I've never been in Parliament during an election year. I've always seen it from the other side and outside.
Right.
And thought, but now I'm actually seeing almost like within hours, people flip-flop and change their minds, and they absolutely won't, then they do. And I think my long answer to the short question is that we can't say what National's going to do for National. Only they can say what they're going to say for them. What we can do is stay focused on our values and our transparency, which is what we said, and which is why I sort of push back about that comment of separatism and two systems. There's two systems in Aotearoa already. One that works for the very rich and one that works for the very not rich. There's already two systems in Aotearoa, and there has been for a very long time. Those who are completely displaced, demolished without lands and language, and luckily love was enough to sort of get them through and come back and want to actually just rebuild a united nation that respects that there were Indigenous peoples here, doesn't take anything away from anyone, but restores that degree of dignity. That's not a two-system approach. That's actually rebalancing. What we have at the moment is Chris Luxon's degree of a one-system approach where we have 2% of the population making decisions for 50%. 2% of the population own 50% of the wealth, making decisions for all of us, who landowners, and we've got homelessness. There's a whole lot of things that we already know that are two systems, and it's not a system designed by Māori. It's a system that's capitalism at its absolute worst. We saw two systems in COVID response where the haves got everything they needed and the have-nots, as we see in the cyclone. So I push back against that whakaaro. I do think that that's a scare-mongering tactic. It implies that we're this bunch of angry, militant I don't know, activists. We're definitely activists, but I think that we're proposing something that's a little bit more peaceful and dignified. And I guess some people see change and the fact that we talk a language that triggers as being too system.
I'd be interested, and I know this is the kind of question that every politician gets asked, especially leading leaders of political parties, but we can't talk about what they're going to do. We can talk about a little bit about what you're going to do. I was watching, we talked about it on BHN a couple of weeks ago when Rawiri was on one of the breakfast shows with David Seymour, and David Seymour said, he basically warned the public of New Zealand not to trust Rawiri and what he stood for. Like, that is pretty close to the quote that what he said. And I thought on that day, oh, well, they've just ruled them out, haven't they? I mean, I can't imagine you guys wanting to work in any kind of constructive way with ACT. So is there anything you can tell us, like, so this is forget what they want, as to what you want for post-election, should you be in a position to help form a government on either side?
Oh, look, I remember that interview, and I think that's probably the only thing we do agree on is that we just wouldn't want to be working with anyone that triggers extremism to that degree. I think one of the things that, we do. So does that rule?
But does that rule out ACT? Does that rule out you being in government with ACT?
I'm pretty confident unless there's some major rejig on their policies and some major change of respect to Te Tiriti, that there's already a real obvious separation on any ability to be able to come together on any ground. I've worked beside Karen on her belief in, and she's one of ex-MPs in their belief in oranga tamariki, but philosophically in their policy realm, that would be just like, Mars and Venus. So, and I don't think that I'm breaking any taboo by, stating the obvious. I think David. So
can I just get real clarity? Does that mean you are saying we can't work with ACT post-election, or does that, because kind of what you're saying, I hear that's what you're sort of saying, but I kind of want to just make sure, because you're also saying,
we can't work with ACT now. I'm pretty sure that we've, and like I said, look, every week people are changing their sphere. I've never seen it like it happens now. Right. And again, I've never been in Parliament to watch how everyone suddenly, they slip inside all the time. But, we've been really open, is that we couldn't work with anyone that triggers extremism to the degree that we've seen that demotes and goes out to denounce that tangata whenua and Te Tiriti exists. And that's where we sit. We've always talked about being a Tiriti-centric Aotearoa that talks about respect of all our nations, respect of tangata whenua, and that we have a unique rights and interests relationship. That's not an exclusive relationship. That's just an Indigenous relationship. Denounce it is to say we don't exist.
I spoke to Raf.
Really open about that.
I spoke to Raf from the Top Party the other day, and he said basically if they get in, they're planning to sit on the opposition benches no matter what. Is there any part of Te Pāti Māori that could choose not to form a government if you had the ability and choose to sit on the opposition benches?
Oh, look, I think it's really important that whoever is in government continues to have their unapologetic voice in opposition. And I guess I think there's this belief, and I think I said it to Jack Tame, we didn't come into politics to become ministers. We came and we reinvigorated the party to resume our role to hold the government to account. And sometimes it's also meant holding opposition to account, which was a bit new. So, that was what our vision is. We haven't come in for a 3-6 year stint to be minister of anything particular. We've come in to rebuild the movement and make sure that there is a tangata whenua voice that isn't vetted in this house. And I hope that we've proved that. Certainly, that's our point of difference. So again, what your answer? Yeah, I think we've contemplated and we enjoy the position of being the only Māori voice in opposition, and we're not under any other party. We're not subservient. We are small, but we're very, very focused on what it is that we're there to do. So
Small but mighty.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, and I think the other question you asked in respect to the going back to the separatism, I think it's really important that, and I sort of said to the Aori, it's really hard in the sound bites and stuff that we get in the media and in the tiles to actually reflect when you said, what else would we do? I think, one of the things that we would do is make sure that the cost of living crisis and the facts and the numbers and stats that we see for child poverty, the homelessness, and the fact that we're often talking past each other, and some of the key people in communities who are there to actually help those solutions are brought in. And we don't have governments that actually think they're the only solution, and there are, and we saw it, in a whole of other ways, the way that marae stand up. We've seen first the way the response efforts whenever the whole country's in crisis. So there's some of those that we'd want to bring sight to. I think the other thing is that we want to make sure there's a progressive plan to the climate crisis. And what we've sort of seen with this government was really disappointing as a backpedaling. So I think those are definitely some of the things, real basics, bread and butter, and being able to survive and thrive, and then be able to, thrive on our own, in our own nation, our own planet. So yeah, oranga tangata, oranga whenua.
Now we're at about 20 minutes, which is the time that we said. Have you got 2 more minutes? Because we had one other little question. Is it okay?
Yeah.
I just first of all, the thing that I said to Raf about that was, I know some people are going to be voting in a way that they want their party to determine the best for their voters. When I vote, I want a party to form a government. And I wonder about that idea for Raf. And I'm not saying you guys haven't said you're going to do this, but I said to him, if you're telling me right now that you're going to go into the cross benches, you're going to go into the opposition seats, then I'm not going to vote for you, because what that vote might end up doing is putting in the party or the government that I don't want in. Like I want to put someone into the tent rather than keep them out. Now, I'm not saying that's right. That's just the way I was thinking when I was voting. Just a thought based around that idea of kind of sitting on the outside looking in, if you had the choice to go on the inside and look out, so to speak. But the one thing I wanted to say was, Christopher Luxon talked about the two separate systems. You're quoted as saying, we've always been open. Sorry, we've always open about being pro-Māori. So it sounds like you're saying that yes, there are two separate systems, rich and poor. He's saying this, there are two separate systems, Māori and non-Māori. I thought what I might do is give you just a minute or two, or whatever you want, to explain to us in layman's terms, when you say pro-Māori, what do you mean? Because other people are interpreting that as a special class of people who get rights and privileges that the rest of us don't. How do you see it? Can you explain it to us morons to give it a really clear definition? So if anyone questions that in the future, we can go, well, look what Debbie said. This is what it means to Pāti Māori.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're morons. I just think that as a nation, we haven't talked about ourselves enough. We've talked about everyone else's history and being here. I think being pro-Māori has actually been positive about Te Tiriti and the opportunities that were afforded to us by our ancestors. The fact that there was a really great intent to bring the best of united cultures and nations, and acknowledgement that tangata whenua were here. I don't think, I don't want to be treated special. I don't want my mokopuna treated special. I want to be recognised for who we are. That's it. And I don't think there's anything, and when I think I said we're pro-Māori doesn't mean we're anti-non-Māori. What that means is, if you look at it, it's actually a balanced view that we're all really important. And I don't think that we have to put someone else down just because tangata whenua want to be recognised for our uniqueness and what it is that we have. Just as tangata tiriti do, just as we do as Aotearoa, just as we do as humans in the world. So I think that there's quite an inclusive, thought? Sorry, I'm bilingual. An inclusive thought about that. And we see the embracing of that often. We see the embracing that, hey, I'm a Kiwi, I tangi, and I go to marae like a Māori. Hey, I'm a Māori, I do and do things that have come from my European side, and none has lost anything. The problem is that Māori under Te Tiriti are pushing to actually be recognised equally. That's the problem. And I think that's all we're sort of trying to do, is no one's trying to take anything off anyone, And sometimes when a culture and a group of people who had, rights and interests here, and were born here nowhere else as the start of their culture, get, colonization kicks us around and they get left behind. And so I just don't think reaffirming that is bad.
Cool.
Yeah.
Debbie Ngarewa Packer, co-leader of Te Pāti Māori, thank you for joining us today.
Anytime. Thanks, Pat.
Welcome back from the summer series. Hope you're enjoying the clips from the year as we all take a bit of a break over summer. There will be one of these broadcast every night at 9 p.m. that we normally would be having a show. So that's not public holidays and not Friday or the weekends. So all the Monday through Thursdays between now and when we come back in January, there will be a summer series episode for you to enjoy some of the people we've spoken to over the year. Also want to say a huge thanks to all our patrons. You guys are beautiful, and during this summer period, especially when things are slowing down and we don't see revenue from places like the merch shop as much or the views on YouTube, these are the people that help pay the bills. We've had a lot of uptake in the last wee while, and a huge thanks to some of the people who have joined on in the last month. If you want to become a patron, all you need to do is visit patreon.com/Big Hearing News. That is patreon.com/Big Hearing News. All you beautiful people who have become part of what we do, we thank you very much. There's all our executive producers, our senior producers, our super patrons as well. But there's so many more people in here as well. There's a fuel level, a patron level, a coffee runner level. And because we're changing things up again a little bit in 2024, there will be a lot more attention paid from us to the patrons and what you guys have offered us through this time period than perhaps there has been this year. So if you're keen to get behind what we do, if you're keen to support what we do, we'd love to have you as a part of our team. Patreon.com/Big Hearing News. Now, if you do become a patron during the summer series period, you may not see your name on the billboard until we come back. We'll see, because these are pre-recorded. But if you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you on board. Patreon.com/Big Hearing News. Right. Last clip now for the summer series, for this episode. Enjoy. Here, I want to have a look at this, yeah? So I'm going to go backwards before we go forwards. I think I've probably shown this once before. If I haven't, I've certainly described it. This is an advert for a Danish television station called TV2. This advert was part of the, I don't know what you call it, the vision board, the swatch things at the start of Today FM as to what they wanted to do. Now, I will read out what the subtitles are, because people who are listening to the audio podcast won't see them. So this was part of what Today FM was trying to do, okay? First of all, what you haven't seen in this advert is a whole bunch of people have come into this room together. A whole bunch of people have then got themselves into these organized groups. You've got the hoodie wearing teens. You've got the mums with prams. You've got the elderly retired people. You've got the business people, and they're all segregated into these boxes of who they are and where they are in life. This is what this Danish television station did as an advert to try and say, this is our audience. And this is one of the ways that Today FM tried to do what they were going to do. Welcome. I'm going to ask you some questions today. Some of them might be a bit personal, but I hope you will answer them honestly. Who in this room was the class clown? And then what we see is people from every group, from the tattoo group, see like that if you're watching, every group comes to the front.
I do love this clip, though.
It's good, eh? Cool. The next question, who are step parents? People from every group come to the front. You get the point. So what happened is, this television station, and I know this was part of the inspiration for Today FM, was like, we can get people from many, many area groups that have similarities. We don't have to be so tribal. We can make this work. So, the 25-year-old hoodie wearing youth, whatever, we can perhaps provide to them like we can to the 40-year-old parent. That was part of how they started up. Now, you might remember this young fella, Chewy. His name's George of the Jungle.
Oh, well, yes, George.
We talked a bit about the day. We talked a bit about Today FM the day it started. This is what we said. Because what they did when they're setting it up is they wanted to be, and they want to be, something that no matter where you are in society, what sector you're in, they want to be able to pull you in with something. So it'll have quite a broad reach. I mean, criticisms by some of the concept is that's sort of what RNZ does, and if this is RNZ with adverts, will anyone listen to it? That's to be determined. I have no criticism. I actually think that their aspirations are amazing. I think if they can do it, it will be an amazing radio station. You know, pulling in all aspects of society. Whether they can or can't will be another way. It could be a huge train wreck as well, because you know when you're the jack of all trades, you become the master of none. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Right. So on the day it started, we earmarked that idea. If it's the jack of all trades, it could be the master of none. They didn't see ratings. Maybe that was the answer. One other part here as well, and this is about the aspirational part of what they were going to try and do. I think the aspirational part of it to, you know, we talk about constantly the world becoming tribal, and what they're saying is within those tribes there are similarities. Let's pull the similarities out. So rather than looking at the tribal aspect of talkback and just talk to the conservative 70-year-old white people, let's actually say in that conservative 70-year-old white people, there's topics that are going to work with people who are also, you know, progressive and 25 and, you know, and middle of the range and 40. And if they can do it, it'll be really interesting. I wonder if that kind of model in America would work better, because in the US, you've got 330 million people to pull from. So if you only do 1 or 2%, it's still a really big audience. In New Zealand, the audience is so much smaller, and it's getting smaller. Oh, maybe not every day. Radio's still doing very well in New Zealand. But, you know, if you pull 1 or 2%, it's an unsuccessful radio station that can't sustain itself. But if, you know, these guys need to be up there with ZB, they need to be 10 to 15% of the marketplace for the amount of money and the talent they've got, what they're throwing at it. But I guess we'll see. And we have seen, and they weren't, and they couldn't. Now, Chewy, you're going to have the floor now for a bit, because in the last part of the show, I'm going to talk about what I think they got wrong and what they should have done. It's a little bit, you know, I don't want to dance on someone's grave, but we commentate on the commentators. This is a pretty big series of commentators that are no longer with us. So we kind of called it, you know, a year ago. Yeah. We said they have to be careful. These are the pitfalls, and the pitfalls seem to come to fruition, Chewy.
First of all, just a small criticism there. When Tova came in and they had, well, when they were told to get off air and start playing music, if you don't immediately lock the studio door and put on Rage Against the Machine, you have failed. No, you have to kick this door down. I'm staying in here until you get me out of the studio. That's how I'd play it. That's how everybody should play it. I didn't listen to a lot of Today FM. I'll be honest. So people, please correct me here. But I always felt that they were trying to do that broad thing, but ultimately they were looking at ZB's audience and going, "We want that. We want that audience, not a different audience. We want their audience." And they just, it's not there. So, I mean, if ZB goes right, maybe Today should have gone more left. I mean, I'd certainly want to see that. But again, RNZ probably fills that role more than anything.
But RNZ doesn't do it commercially. I mean, there's a difference.
Yeah.
RNZ. So, okay. So you're stealing my thunder a little bit here.
Because we're the same person, Pat.
No, you're more authoritarian than me. You always forget this. So this is they had this aspirational start. Yeah. Now I always look back to ZB, and I look back to when ZB started. When ZB started up with Paul Holmes and these people, they were all in their 30s. Yeah. They started this station with these, you know, primarily young guys, and they were all guys, I think, probably at the time, and they built over 10 years. When Today FM started up, there was a promise of 10 years and sort of a guarantee of 5 years runway, right? And what happened is they started off, or they had this idea as a part of their vision board to be aspirational and be all things to all people. Now, I think I've worked long enough in media and created content for long enough to know that that kind of doesn't work, because you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So what they unfortunately did with Duncan Garner and Leah Parnapa and Mark Richardson, right? That's three of the biggest opinion talk parts. So morning is news, right, which is really should be just mostly journalism. Drive is news, mostly journalism. Daytimes and nights can be opinion. Nights was Polly Gillespie, who was fun, and she just, she basically did Polly. But those days in the middle, they had someone who said they'd vote for Trump if they had been living in America. They have someone who said he would like to, who obviously was angling to be a national MP, and someone who's an ACT voter. Those were their three main daytime hosts. And Chewy, whether it was active or not, I've spoken to management at Today FM who overtly say that their opinion talk is right. So you're exactly right. Whether it was an active choice or not, after this inspirational start, or this inspirational idea of being all things to all people, they then put in, they became in the opinion piece, at least, News Talk ZB Light. And we're not a big enough country to have News Talk ZB twice. Now, what I would have done was there is low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit is left.
Yeah.
I don't mean has left.
That's what we are. We love the low-hanging fruit. It's easy.
Is the left. Yeah. What is it? We like, what do you call it? Not undereducated low-hanging fruit. I think that's what we like most of all.
You don't want to work hard for the high-hanging fruit. That's
So, in my opinion, I think what Today FM should have done, and actually, to be honest, I said this to people at Today FM on management level a couple of times, is why haven't you gone down and done exactly the opposite of ZB? They are providing an audience. I mean, Kerry Woodham has swung to the right, in my opinion, to provide for Leighton's old audience rather than trying to grow her own.
Yeah.
That's what I think has happened there. Why didn't you have a raving lefty in there on the other side? Look, we get people every night. We've had people tonight come in here not liking us. You would get the righties coming along to have a crack at the lefty. It's not going to lessen your audience, but you might also attract the lefties who don't have anywhere to go right now. Yeah. If it was me running that place, I would have actively gone for younger, lefter people in my opinion slots. I would have driven the political talk heavily, and I think that was a mistake. Now, we'll never know. There's no, we don't have parallel universes here that the multiverse, we can go check it out. But I think they made a real mistake with, I think Duncan Garner, although he's very good at what he does, right? But I think he was a mistake because you listen to Duncan Garner when he's basically got all the same talking points as Kerry Woodham, who's got, 10, 15, 20 times the audience, which means 10, 20 times the resource, 10, 20 times the guests. I don't know if Luxon's ever been in for an hour with Duncan Garner, but he was in there fairly regularly with Kerry Woodham. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I just think that is really, really one of the places that whoever was the person in charge of making those decisions, whether it was the CEO or whether it was the board or whatever, there's some interesting conversation around the former CEO Cam Wallace being a massive national supporter, being someone who I think worked with Luxon at Air New Zealand, and some conversation going on that is he left to go off and then talk work with and for national. Now, I don't know any of that, but I've seen the talk around. Now, if you've got someone who is a massively national person who's trying to set up a quote unquote balanced radio station, where do you think it's going to fall? It's not going to fall on the left. It's going to fall at the very best center right, if not further right. So I really feel disappointed that there could have been a home for, and when I say some of us, I don't mean us broadcasters. I mean, that could have been a part of it, but for some of us listeners, who have a left perspective, who like the left, who want to hear those thoughts and views as opposed to thoughts and prayers, which the other side tend to do. There could have been something provided. Would it have worked? Who knows? But it fucking would have lasted a year, which is all the current thing lasted. It lasted a year. They put $9 million into that to get it going. And it lasted a year.